What avoidants say before they disappear. Let's talk about something that almost feels like an emotional magic trick, except it's not magical, it's painful. You're talking to someone you care about, maybe even falling for them, and things seem good. They're opening up, they're showing affection, they're letting you in. Then slowly or suddenly, they start saying things that just don't sit right, and before you even realize what's happening, they're gone. No big fight, no clear closure, just space, silence, and confusion. If you've ever been with a dismissive-avoidant or a fearful-avoidant, you know exactly what I mean. Avoidants rarely vanish without warning signs, but their warnings often come disguised as casual statements. And if you can learn to hear them, you'll see the exit door they're already walking toward. One of the first things you'll hear is, "I just need some space right now." This might seem harmless at first. After all, everyone needs space sometimes. But for an avoidant, this phrase often comes loaded with unspoken meaning. It's rarely about just needing an afternoon to decompress. It's about emotional closeness feeling too intense, too risky, too exposing. Avoidants have a deep-rooted fear of losing themselves in relationships. When they say, "I need space," what they often mean is, "I'm feeling overwhelmed by this intimacy, and I need to retreat to feel safe again." If you hear this more than once, pay attention. It's often the beginning of a slow fade. Then there's the classic, "I'm just really busy right now." This is avoidant code for emotional withdrawal. Avoidants often use busyness as a socially acceptable shield. They'll load up their schedule, take on extra work, or suddenly become too exhausted to meet. But the truth is, busy people still make time for the things and people they truly want in their lives. When someone is genuinely busy but still emotionally connected, they find ways to show you you're important. But when an avoidant is preparing to disappear, "I'm busy" becomes a blanket excuse to reduce contact, avoid deeper conversations, and slowly slip away without having to directly say, "I'm pulling back." Another one you might hear is, "I'm not sure I'm ready for a relationship right now." Now this one can sting. Often they've been giving you attention, enjoying your company, even making you feel like you're building something real. Then suddenly they realize they're not ready. But here's the truth. Avoidants often know from the beginning that closeness is difficult for them. What changes isn't their readiness, but their level of comfort with the intensity of your connection. When they sense emotional responsibility, vulnerability, or expectations growing, they'll use this line as a preemptive defense. They might not fully disappear right away after saying this, but it's a signal that they're creating emotional distance. A softer, more subtle version is, "I think we should slow things down." On the surface, this sounds reasonable. Maybe you've been spending a lot of time together. Maybe feelings are growing fast. But with avoidance, slowing down is less about building a healthier pace and more about decreasing the emotional intensity. It's a calculated move to lower your expectations, reduce your emotional investment, and give themselves more breathing room. If you agree to slow down, you might find that you're the one doing most of the effort to keep things alive while they seem less and less engaged. One of the most confusing things an avoidant might say before disappearing is, "You deserve someone better." This sounds selfless, almost noble, but it's actually a deflection. Avoidants often feel inadequate when it comes to emotional availability. They know they can't, or don't want to, meet your needs fully. So rather than admit, "I'm pulling away because I'm afraid of intimacy," they frame it as though they're protecting you. It's a way to leave without feeling like the bad guy. But the effect on you is devastating because it plants seeds of self-doubt. Sometimes you'll get something even more vague. "I'm just going through a lot right now." This is a convenient shield for an avoidance withdrawal because it's hard to argue with. Of course, people go through hard times, and of course, they need understanding. But when this phrase is used without follow-through, without them letting you be part of that struggle, or even updating you, it's less about their hardship and more about keeping you at arm's length. Over time, you'll notice their hard time doesn't include you, and that's when the disappearance really begins. Another warning phrase is, "I don't want to ruin what we have." At first, this sounds like they value the connection. But with avoidance, this is often code for, "I don't want to get closer because closeness feels dangerous." They fear that the more emotionally invested you become, the more pressure they'll feel, and eventually the more they'll have to run. So they try to freeze the relationship in a low intimacy zone, telling themselves it's to protect the bond, but in reality, it slowly starves the connection until it fades. One of the most emotionally distant things you might hear is, "I'm not good at relationships." This is the avoidant giving you a disclaimer, and also a subtle warning not to expect too much. They might even present it like a confession, something vulnerable. But make no mistake, when avoidants say this, it's often to lower your expectations so that when they pull away, you can't say you weren't warned. It also gives them permission in their own mind to disengage when things get intense. Sometimes the sign is even more abrupt. "I think I need to figure myself out first." Avoidants often believe that in order to connect deeply, they have to be perfect or have everything in order. But this is also a perfect escape route. Figuring themselves out can take months, years, or an entire lifetime. And in the meantime, they're free from the emotional closeness that makes them anxious. This isn't to say people never need to work on themselves. But when an avoidant says it right as you're getting close, it's often a strategic retreat. And then there's the silence. Avoidants don't always give you a clear statement before they disappear. Sometimes the statement is in what they don't say: unanswered messages, vague replies, seen receipts without response. They might not verbalize their pullback, but you'll feel it in the energy shift. Conversations that used to flow now feel strained. Plans that used to be easy now take effort. And the worst part is, you're left guessing what went wrong. Here's the hard truth. Avoidants don't usually disappear because they stop liking you. They disappear because the closeness triggered a fear that runs deeper than their desire to connect. The things they say before disappearing are often their way of softening the exit, not because they want to hurt you less, but because they want to feel less guilt. It's self-protection, not malice. But that doesn't make the hurt any smaller for you. If you're with someone who's avoidant, the key is to listen to both their words and their patterns. Anyone can have a bad week, need space, or feel uncertain about life. But when those phrases start becoming a pattern, and when your emotional needs start being sidelined, that's when you need to ask yourself, am I in a relationship or am I in a waiting room? Because with avoidance, waiting for them to feel safe enough to stay can turn into waiting forever. You deserve a connection where you don't have to decode messages or read between the lines to know if someone's invested. You deserve clarity, effort, and consistency. And the sad reality is, when an avoidant starts speaking the language of retreat, no amount of chasing will change the ending they're already writing. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do when you hear these phrases is not to argue, not to convince, not to cling, but to step back and let them go. Because disappearing may be their way of protecting themselves, but choosing not to follow them into that silence is your way of protecting you.